Okay, so you've definitely heard the buzz about all these new weight loss drugs, right? It seems like they're everywhere. But the real story, the one we're going to get into today, isn't just about losing weight. It's about a quiet medical revolution that's happening right under our noses. So let's dive in and unpack the secret science behind it all.
So that brings us to the big question. Are these new miracle drugs just a better way to shed a few pounds? Or is there something bigger going on? Well, it turns out they're pointing us to a completely different way of thinking about a whole bunch of chronic diseases.
You know, for the longest time, the conversation around obesity was all about willpower. It was seen as a lifestyle failure, maybe a cosmetic issue. But now, the script has totally flipped. Science now sees it for what it is, a chronic, systemic disease with deep biological roots. And that one change in perspective, well, it changes absolutely everything.
To make this official, experts have created a whole new framework for it. They call it Adiposity-Based chronic disease, or ABCD for short. And the key word here is adiposity. This isn't just about weight on a scale. It's about how excess or unhealthy fat tissue actually drives a whole cascade of other health problems throughout the body.
Think of it like this. Adiposity is the root system of a really unhealthy tree. And from that one root, you don't just get one problem, you get a bunch of different unhealthy branches. In fact, you can think of it as a disease with, get this, 8 interconnected heads, like a hydra. And here they are, those 8 heads. We're talking about things that for years we've treated as totally separate issues. You've got type 2 diabetes, heart disease, fatty liver disease, even things like PCOS and chronic kidney disease. But in the ABCD model, these aren't separate. They're all symptoms of the exact same underlying problem, all connected by things like inflammation and insulin resistance.
Okay, so an 8-headed disease. That sounds complicated, right? For years, we've been trying to chop off each head one by one. But what if there was a way to go after the root system itself?
And this is where the game changers come in. This specific class of drugs, GLP-1 receptor agonists, is the breakthrough that lets us do exactly that. Honestly, they're the key to this entire new philosophy in medicine.
So how do they actually work? It's pretty cool, actually. In simple terms, they mimic a natural hormone our own bodies make, called GLP-1. This little hormone does a few key jobs. It helps our body manage blood sugar, it sends a signal to our brain that says, hey, we're full, and it slows down digestion. Now, all that leads to weight loss, sure, but that's not even the most exciting part.
Because here's the real secret, the absolute breakthrough. The weight loss is almost a positive side effect of something much deeper happening. These drugs don't just treat one symptom. They treat the entire system that links all 8 of those ABCD pillars together.
And this, right here, this is the big reveal. For the very first time, we have a class of drugs that can actually modify the course of the entire ABCD spectrum. Yeah, it helps with weight loss, but it also improves blood sugar control, lowers blood pressure, cuts down liver fat, helps with fertility for people with PCOS, protects the kidneys, and improves our cholesterol. It's like one key that unlocks 8 different doors at the same time. And let's make that real for a second. Take blood pressure. We're seeing an average reduction of about 4 to 6 millimeters of mercury. Now, I know that might not sound like a mind-blowing number, but in medicine, that is a consistent, meaningful drop that makes a real difference in protecting your heart long-term.
And the story keeps getting better. This whole revolutionary approach, it's becoming easier for more people to actually use. For a long time, a huge barrier was that these therapies were only available as injections, but that's all starting to change. We're now seeing the rise of the pill. I mean, having an oral version is a massive deal. It works just as well as the injections, but it makes it so much easier for people who are, hesitant about needles. It's a way more convenient entry point to start managing ABCD early on.
So when you pull it all together, you start to see that this isn't really a story about a new drug. It's a story about a whole new philosophy of care, a fundamentally new way of looking at chronic disease itself.
And honestly, this quote from the source material just nails it. The ABCD framework reframes obesity as a metabolic disease, not a lifestyle failure. We're finally moving from a culture of blame to a foundation of biology.
Now, I have to be super clear on this next point. These drugs are incredible tools, but they are not a magic bullet. They're just one piece of a much larger puzzle. Truly effective care is built on 4 pillars. You need good nutrition, you need exercise, you need behavioral support, And when it's the right fit, you add pharmacotherapy. That's the fancy word for these medications. They work best when they're all working together.
And the science isn't even stopping here. The future is already focused on combination therapies that are even more powerful. We're seeing new treatments that mix GLP-1 with other hormones to get even bigger and better results. The story is still unfolding.
I want to read you this one last quote because it wraps the whole thing up perfectly. It says, "These drugs are now central to managing the adiposity continuum, uniting all those different disorders under one therapeutic umbrella." That is a huge, huge statement.
So, what's the final takeaway? It's simple, but it's profound. For decades, we've just been chasing symptoms. Now, for the first time, we can actually treat the source.
And that leaves us with a pretty fascinating question to think about, doesn't it? Now that we actually have the tools to treat the root cause of so many of our most common illnesses, how is that going to change the future of health for every single one of us?